Lincoln clasps his hands together at the mention of that stint in the limo. I did, but I learned a few things from that experience, raising a finger. For one, Terabee is a huge jerk. Second, you probably would have hung out with the rich guy too if you had the chance. Lola opened her mouth to do a retort, but only chose to close it as she knew what her brother said was true. And lastly, Lincoln made a forlorn gaze. Stuff like this having a limo doesn't mean anything if don't have anyone who actually cares about you to share it with. Lola's eyes opened up in confusion and curiosity. And when I said Fearaby is a huge jerk, I mean it. He is a really huge jerk, and I'm not just talking about his size. Hanging out with him all day ended up wasting the time I had with the limo, and Kirby had threw me out of the moment that the timer buzzed because I acted like a snobby rich guys he used to drive around. The middle child sulked, letting himself sink into the couch. Probably wasn't a good idea for him to do that middle of downtown, because I was lost and got attacked by dogs 3 times. The boy held up 3 fingers to emphasize this point. By the time I figured out where I was covered in dirt, my suit was ruined, I was covered in mud. I guess you could say I looked like a homeless person if you could only made a quick stare. Lincoln drew in a breath before sighing. But being the idiot I was, I showed up to his house, and the only thing he cared about was the fact that I didn't have the limo. Lola made a quick remark in his face in disgust. So he kicked me off his porch and I had to figure out how to solve that mess. Lincoln then stared at the ceiling. As much as I don't want to say it, Lori was right. I wasn't some rich guy, just some kid who ate a bunch of mustard. That was a total idiot for letting it go in my head. Lola stared at her brother, a spooked gaze greeting him when he looked at the chance to look at her. The parallels between Lincoln was that fruit that she could go for if she didn't change her attitude. It would be becoming the next Miss America, only to lose it because she had blemish on her face, or was too old to qualify. After which, could always cast it out and forgotten, because she didn't have good connections with the others. Or worse, she could have had her entire career ruined through social media, and since that was a big deal these days. At least, the oldest comparison she would make, the idea of becoming Miss America one day, seemed too dated to her now. Having renounced pageantry altogether, after facing the harsh reality of what it was doing to her, and she nearly had suffered a huge point at her life at the tender age of 6. Now the low point was sitting right in front of her with trepidation. Lincoln, why didn't you tell us any of that? The 6-year-old asked as she slowly got up to her astonishment. You girls were so busy enjoying the limo, I didn't want to ruin it by talking about what happened, Lincoln explained. And honestly, even if I didn't want to talk about it, no one asked. So I assume you guys just forgave everyone on the spot. Lola had tapped her foot against the fact of the couch. We may have still been a bit mad at you for ditching us after you promised let us to ride in the limo. And thinking of it now, none of us even bothered asking where you were that morning, or if you came back at home at all. She squinted an eye. And where were you anyway? I had tracked down Kirby so I could apologize to him about the way I acted. Lincoln rubbed the back of his head. It took a couple of hours wandering around, but I found him there at the bus station. We talked and I apologized. He then said to me that he wouldn't hold it over me since I was only a kid. But that didn't put the younger lad at ease. After learning what I did now, we should have asked, at least I wish I did. Lola shifted in her position to sit at one of her legs, and after hearing about what happened to you, I've come to realize the same thing. Lincoln raised a brow. What do you mean? That day you went to the hospital, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. All I saw was just a monster who made you up in there, and I ruined your perfect smile. Lincoln chewed his lips slightly. His smile definitely wasn't perfect. No regular person has a chipped tooth sticking out of their mouth half the time. His tongue flicking over still empty sockets of where his teeth were pulled, feeling the bony protrusions of the permanent teeth within his gum line. He was thankful that only the last of his baby teeth were knocked out, those, aside from getting his wisdom teeth pulled, that is. And thinking what Lola said, he was certain that she wasn't the only person to land a hit to his mouth, but she was just the first to admit it. You can be annoying sometimes, Lincoln, but I never wanted to go that far. Lola then blinked a few fresh tears. Then when we found you, we were so afraid. You were so afraid of us that we couldn't even be in the same room. I thought about the times I used it against you to get what I wanted and to make you think you hate me now. Lola shifted her clear in her nose and wiped away the steady flow of tears coming from her eyes. Lincoln was left pondering his next move. In retrospect, Lola was a spoiled brat that his parents did a little quail to her potentially bad behavior. So whenever she often deemed about owning the world at large, that everyone else would be so subservient to her, at least whenever she talked about was a nice dream she had. She could blame her for letting her power go to the head, acting out her fantasies. But Lincoln knew deep down he was no better. Aside from the incident with the limo, that time he and his sisters thought of their parents would throw one of them out, lead them to wondering out loud how great it would be if he was the only child. There was so many times he tried to get Lily to act more like him, which in retrospect might happen regardless, since when he noticed the toddler being distant towards her other siblings. And then there was one time he tried getting his sisters to go green, and Lincoln would be the first to admit his ideas were rather extreme to accomplish a goal. Then again, he thought at the same time Clyde's dads went through the utility bills, it was only a matter of time before Mom and Dad came after their kids for excessively electrical and water use. Not to mention the phone data bill, which Mom had later gotten after Lori after a few times. And Luann, wasn't she wasting all the food making pies just to throw them at people? Although Lisa was handling all the finances that came, handling with the monthly bills, likely meant the parents would have never known. Where the hell was he going? The loud kid shook his head to clear what he remembered all the time his sisters tried bribing him to either go to the beach or Dairyland. The boy had purposely delayed his decision in making, enjoyed all the perks that came with it, until it came clear the girls were resorting to sabotage to win his favor. With him stuck in the crossfire, even that didn't seem fair to blame him for the mess that they were in, the ones who bribed him in the first place. Wet sniffling grabbed the boy's attention, spying Lola rubbing her nose. Her hand was covered in translucent fluid, and Lincoln could only guess it had been a few minutes. He eyed Dr. Lopez, wondering why she hadn't done anything. The doctor simply stared at him, before nodding her head towards his sister. Lincoln then looked between her and his sister, and soon came to the nonverbal outstanding. The lad began moving to the side of the couch. The main reason was the good doctor helped with Lynn, due to it being clear that Lincoln would be too hesitant to cheer himself up. And as a teenager, Miranda figured Lynn would need some help convoying her thoughts. This was different. By now, Lincoln had grown used to being with his sister's presence. He no longer had such a blind fear towards them. And now it was time to act as if another role he had thought he wouldn't be towards besides Lily, being an older brother. He scooted over to her until he sat next to the crying girl. Lola was busy trying to stifle her tears when she noticed a shift weight in her seat. Glancing at her brother and face was red of her confusion, before turning to shock as Lincoln, with some hesitancy on his part, wrapped his arms around her and brought her into a hug. Lola blinked as her mind processed what had happened. Her eyes became very watery before more tears leaked out as she settled against her brother's chest. When she started to sob, Lincoln gently rubbed her back. It's gonna be okay, Lola, Lincoln spoke, trying his best not to get his hesitantly show. It's gonna be okay. Well, that was Syngenesophobia, a Loud House story written by that engineer. My final thoughts on the story? Well, unfortunately this story ended at, chapter 45, and this one hasn't been updated since, let me look. This story has not been updated since 2 years ago, and I don't know why it hasn't been updated since then. I mean, I can understand if the author lost interest in the story, But it kind of makes me wonder why that story had not been updated. I mean, the story itself has not been updated in like 2 years, so you would think maybe there was like a couple other ones, but I don't understand. Like, I literally don't understand why, why this story did not, is not finished. But if the author's watching, I really do hope that the author can continue, writing the story, because I like to think everything else goes well with Lincoln and his sisters, like associating with them again and not being afraid of them. But I mean, it's still a good story, and I have linked the story in the description so you guys can go read it if you like. But to be fair, that engineer, the author of this story, actually wrote actually a pretty good chunk of Loud House stories. But I really do wish that this story had continued, because right now it's kind of ending a little bit off a cliffhanger. Well, I know it's on a cliffhanger now because it's been about 2 years since the author updated. But I really do hope the author updates this story soon and we get more chapters of it. Until this story, whenever it gets updated, I'll read more of this story if it ever gets updated, to which I don't know if it ever will or not. So that's why I'm just kind of doing the review. Well, the grammar is pretty good, and the sentence structure is pretty good. The storyline is awesome. I could definitely see this being the case for the Loud House, because I know Loud House has done, crazy weird episodes and shit in the past, and this is no doubt one of them that I can see them doing. However, I definitely have to say, I don't know if this story will ever get updated, so if any of you guys who know the author or whatever can find out when this story will get updated, then let me know. But here's the thing, I don't know if it will ever get updated, because it's been about 2 years, so it's hard to say if it does or not. But yeah. But I still really thought this was a really good story. It was amazing, well made. It's definitely a good one. So, I guess with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm going to sit here and just say this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you disagree with me, that is fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions. Regards to these stories, this is just my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. Well, it's a good one. But I think I would have to minus 1 point to give it a 9 out of 10. Reason why it's getting a 9 out of 10 now is because this story has not been updated in like 2 years. So if this story ever gets finished, like gets updated, then I'll read the next chapter of this story. But only if it ever does get updated, to which I don't know if it ever will or not, because it's been a few years since the author last updated the story. So that's why I'm doing the review. I know I repeat myself, but I'm just saying. So anyways, what did you guys personally think of this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I am the Lion Queen. I want to thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, if you guys want to go subscribe to my backup channel known as Miss Dark Shigo, link to that will be in the About page section, so you guys can go sub to that one. If you guys want to go follow me on DeviantArt, link to my DeviantArt will be in the About page section, so you guys can go follow me on DeviantArt if you're interested. If you're also interested in following my Twitter account, my link to my Twitter account will be in the About page section, so you guys can go see that. And yeah, if I'm missing anything about this story, please let me know what it is in the comments below. And as always, like I'm going to say before, like I'll say again, I will continue reading this story if it ever gets updated. But since it's been about 2 years, I don't know if it will get updated. So it's hard to say if it does get updated or not. So I guess with that being said, yeah, as always, please roll the outro because I'm out of here. And I'll be seeing you all next time.